Not all homes are created equally, and there's some that you should avoid regardless if you love the kitchen renos and the bathroom renos or the overall vibe of the house. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the types of homes that you should never buy. And of course, like most things in life, there's always exceptions to the rule, and truthfully, there's a couple things on this list that I have actually bought homes that possess these qualities, but I'm going to get into that a little bit more in this video. Now, just before I get into it, if you're new here, my name is Andrew Stephens. I'm a realtor in Halifax. And if you want to be educated on the Halifax real estate market, then hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Okay, now before I get going on this, I just want to say that I've helped a lot of buyers in my career. I just surpassed my 300th buyer deal in my career, which is an average of 30 deals per year only on the buyer side of the transaction. So I've learned a lot about homes, and I've learned a lot about what really causes issues with homes. And everything I'm going to discuss today is based on real life experiences, whether it's with myself and my own purchases and my own home ownership, or with regarding my clients as well. And if you watch this video and it doesn't scare the crap out of you from buying a home altogether, you can reach out to me anytime in the Calendly link below in my description if you want some guidance on the home buying process. So first up, homes I would never buy is a home with a high effective age. So a lot of the videos you watch that are never buy a home or never buy this type of home, they talk a lot about don't buy older homes. And respectfully, I very much disagree with this statement. There's a lot of Century homes in Halifax. I own one. It's very solid. A lot of these homes are very solid. They're built very, very well. But instead, with my clients, I talk about effective age. So what I mean by that is I would rather have a client buy a home that is 50 years old, that has an all new roof, plumbing, heating system, electrical, windows, siding, all the cosmetic renovations, and so on. I'd rather see them buy a 50-year-old home with all these things renovated in the last 5 years than I would to see them buy a 25 or a 30-year-old home that had never been touched since the day it was built. Because that home, all those big ticket items are coming up for repair anytime, and it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Now, that's not saying you shouldn't buy that home ever, but it's just knowing what you're getting yourself into. So the exception with this one is that if you're buying a home that has a high effective age and has a lot of things coming up for repair, that you're getting it at a price that it makes sense and you know what you're getting yourself into in terms of the renovations and you have quotes for it and all those sorts of things. So that would be the one exception to this one. Next up on the list is homes with negative grade. So what I mean by this is negative grade towards the home. So if your home is here, you have negative grade coming in, which means the groundwater and everything is funneling back in towards your home. Let's face it, when you think about the construction of a home, all the items of the home are designed to funnel water away from the house. So you have your roof, you have your downspouts, and everything funnels away from the house. You don't want that groundwater coming back towards your foundation. Now in Nova Scotia, this is especially important because we have a ton of groundwater here. We have a lot of snow in the wintertime. It's freezing, it's thawing, we're getting melting snow, we're getting a lot of water up against the foundation. So you want to make sure that everything around your home in terms of the ground is graded away from your home. Because if not, it's going to be a lot more likely to flood when we're getting a lot of rain and a lot of groundwater coming up against your foundation. Now, a lot of these can be fixed with simple drainage, but when I say simple, that does not mean cheap. So you can do interior drainage systems throughout your house, you can do an exterior drainage system throughout the house, or sometimes it's literally as simple as just regrading the ground around the house and it just wasn't really done properly years ago. So it doesn't always mean it's going to be expensive, but in a lot of cases it will be. So the exception to the rule on this one would be if your home is on a slab, so there's no basement, so again, there's a lot less risk of flooding, or if your home has an interior drainage system or some kind of exterior drainage system that you know has been professionally done and it's done properly and you know it's going to work. And honestly, I would love to say that with the negative grade coming in toward the house that you can assume there's always a great drainage system in place, or maybe there's a sump pump on the interior or an interior track system inside the house. But honestly, it's just not the case. You can never, ever assume this has been done or that it's been done properly unless you have some kind of a warranty system in place. All right, let's stick with the overall foundation type topic and let's move on to homes with cinder block foundations. Now, these are extremely problematic, and I would suggest that in Nova Scotia, with the kind of weather that we have, they're even more problematic. And spoiler alert, I did buy one of these. My first home had a cinder block foundation. I did have somebody look at it specifically for the foundation before I bought it, and I did understand what I was getting myself into. And it did cost me about $15,000 to $20,000 of work, but once that work was done, it was all good to go. And even with that being said, I would avoid cinder block foundations at all costs going forward based on my experience. Now, a cinder block foundation is exactly what it sounds like. Most foundations that we see today are concrete, right? That's how homes are built today for the most part, but the cinder block foundations are older. There's still quite a few of them around HRM. I run into them all the time when I'm out showing homes with clients, and they are problematic because, well, like it sounds, they're all kinds of cinder blocks built up on each other, and they settle and they shift. Now in Nova Scotia, I would say this is an even bigger problem because of the fluctuation in temperature that we have with our weather. So it's always freezing and thawing, and with that, things are settling, and when they settle, they're likely to crack and cause holes in your foundation, which means more water intrusion and all kinds of issues like that, not to mention the potential for structural issues as well. Now, the exception to this one, like I said, there's always exceptions, and truthfully, anything with homes can be fixed. It's just a matter of how much money it's going to cost. But the exception for the cinder block foundation would be if it's an extremely flat lot, if it's in pretty mint condition, if it hasn't settled a whole lot, maybe there's an interior drainage system inside the house so you know any water issues are already going to be dealt with. And ideally, it would be parged as well, which is basically a skim coat of concrete around the exterior of the foundation, which will not only help it make it look better, but it'll also help with potential water intrusion as well. And honestly, with all that being said, I would personally still avoid the majority of homes with cinder block foundations. It would be a very rare case that I would look at a buyer and I would say, you know, it has a cinder block foundation, but I wouldn't worry about it. I would be personally worried about this type of a foundation on any home in Nova Scotia. Next up, homes you should never buy. Anything on a main road. Now, this one might be hated by a lot of homeowners watching this video, and truthfully, my first home was on a very busy road in Halifax and a very main road. And it's not to say that there's not situations that you shouldn't buy a home on a main road, and I'll get into some of the exceptions in a minute like I have been throughout this video, but generally speaking, these homes on a main road are going to be less desirable to buyers than the homes on the side streets. So with this in mind, you need to think about resale value. You need to think about, okay, when I go to sell my home, what does that look like? But like I said, there's always exceptions to the rule. So for me personally, it was that I wanted to be in a specific location and I'd rather be on the main road. And the only way I could get in that location is by being on the main road because it was a little bit cheaper than on the side streets. So I chose location over being on a quiet side street. And I was young, I didn't really care about the noise of the city and all that kind of stuff as well. So that's one of the exceptions. And then another one would be maybe you're in a section of a main road that's boulevarded. A good example, this would be Agricola Street. It's a beautiful area down there in the deep north end, just past the Hydrostone where that section of Agricola is boulevarded. And then also maybe you're in a situation where on your main road, based on where you're at, there's maybe speed bumps, so it's slowing down traffic and things like that. So that'll make it a little bit more appealing. It'll slow down the traffic, it'll quiet down the noise and some things like that. All right, next up, homes that were flipped. So this would be somebody like a contractor buying a home, doing all kinds of work on it, and then selling it for a profit on the other end. That would be considered a flip. Now, this is a general statement. Not all flips are equal, but in my experience, the majority of them are done very poorly. Think about it. The contractor is doing this to make as much money as possible, meaning they're going to cheap out on a lot of things along the way, meaning they might not be getting the proper permits, meaning they might not be getting the proper materials, getting the cheapest labor, and of course, a lot of times that leads to issues down the road. Now, the exception to this one is simple. Some flips are done well. I've sold a few of them over the years that were done really, really well. Oftentimes, they're in a little bit higher end neighborhoods that demand a higher price point, which means the finish work has to be good for it to sell. So there are good flips out there and there's people that do a good job on them. I'm not saying that they're all trash, but just know and be aware when you're in a flip what to look for, and a telltale sign of how well a flip is done overall is the finish work. You know, are the baseboards all lined up properly or are they a mess? Is the paint a mess or is it well done? All these little things. Is it all completed? Is it 100% finished? Or are they listing it early to try to get on the market as soon as possible and the house is only 90% done? There's all kinds of telltale signs that you can look at to give you an idea if the flip is done properly. And if your agent that you're working with on the buyer end is asking the listing agent specific questions about materials used and things like this, and they don't have an answer, that probably means that it came from Happy Harry's or somewhere like that. It's secondary stock, or maybe it was really cheap stock bought online and they don't know really where it came from. So there's all kinds of things like that that you need to be aware of when you're looking at properties that were flipped. Moving on, last but certainly not least, homes that I would never buy. A home that is out of the norm for the area. So this could mean a variety of things. Maybe you have a huge house in a neighborhood where there's all kinds of smaller homes around it, and this one is like abnormally larger than every other home. Maybe this home is a lot more modern, and then every other home in the neighborhood is traditional. Maybe this home is 200 grand more than every other home in the neighborhood, like it's over renovated or it's overbuilt for the neighborhood. And there's all kinds of examples that I could come up with. These homes can be very difficult sells in resale because they don't fit the neighborhood that they're in. Now, an exception to this rule would be if you're buying your forever home and you love the home. And when I say forever home, I mean you're going to live there long term. So whether it's your forever home or just a long-term plan, maybe you're going to live there 15 years, maybe it's 20 years or whatever, then, well, I wouldn't really worry about it nearly as much. If you're buying it and it's a 3 to 5 year plan, I would avoid these types of homes at all costs. It is a very difficult sell in resale in my experience. Now, I hope this video has opened your eyes to some of the dangers of buying the wrong type of home. And again, there's an exception to every rule, and I'm happy to discuss those further. And if this video hasn't scared the crap out of you and it hasn't scared you from buying a home altogether, and you're looking for some guidance through your buying process, don't forget you can reach out to me anytime in the Calendly link below to book a buyer consult or a call with me anytime. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support, and have a great day.